It's been a while since I dropped Jujutsu Kaisen, and I think part of the reason was that even if I absolutely enjoyed reading it, I just did not develop any kind of intricate love or adoration for it. Part of it might be because I was busy indulging myself in other series like One Piece and One Punch Man, and the other part was maybe because while reading the Colon games, I felt quite lost and unable to gauge what its purpose was.
なるほど、わからん。
It felt like everything was just happening just because, but I was so wrong. Because Jujutsu Kaisen chapter 212 was absolutely phenomenal. The twist blew me away, so much so that I can confidently say that GEGE got me, and he did it in a manner that the whole fandom did not expect by having Sukuna finesse all of us. GEGE AKUTAMI planned this all along. He planned Sukuna to take over Megumi Fushiguro's body. He foresaw this exact moment from the very first chapter to not only be the turning point of the Colon games, but also where everything will start to snowball into insanity. So, my fellow weebs and gamers, my name is Dan Drinks Coke, and without further ado, let's spiral deep into the absolute madness of Jujutsu Kaisen chapter 212. From the last chapter, we learned that there's something wrong with Tsukimi, as instead of using the 100 points that she received to get out of the games, she added a rule to allow free entry and exits from the colonies. This was an absolute twist, as it turned out that Tsukimi is not an awakened player, but an incarnation of this old ancient bloodthirsty sorcerer called Yuzoru that wants to kill Sukuna. And my god, I got absolute chills from this panel. Seeing Megumi in utter shock reminds me of when Mahiro and Sukuna were evil laughing at Itadori. And the reason why she was able to trick Megumi into thinking she was his older sister in the first place is because incarnated players are able to retain the vessel's memory and basically act just like them. Right after that, she grows a pair of wings and proceeds to fly away. And as Itadori and Angel start chasing after her, Sukuna finally uses Enchain. A quick refresher, Enchain is a binding vow that Sukuna made with Itadori in exchange to restore his heart. And that contract states that when he says Enchain, they will switch bodies for 1 minute, but Sukuna can't hurt or kill anybody during that time. But Sukuna, being the mad lad that he is, finds out a way around the rules by knocking Angel out without killing her, and Sukuna imbues what seems like all of his cursed energy into one single finger and rips it out to feed it to Megumi, which in turn gave us the massive reveal that Sukuna was waiting for this opportunity since the very beginning, the ultimate master plan to take over Megumi Fushiguro's body. We then end the chapter with Itadori getting back to his senses, freed from being Sukuna's vessel with no memory of the vow, confused, and most definitely devastated. This was absolutely a lot to take in, and it is this exact scene that brought me back from the depths of ignorance. In hindsight, we knew that this was heavily foreshadowed since the beginning when Sukuna took interest in Megumi's 10 shadow techniques, with heavy implications about the transfer being shown with cover pages from chapter 1 and chapter 58, and it is still quite unknown if Sukuna wanted Megumi because he knows of a way to bring his original body back with the shadow techniques, or he simply just wants the power for himself. Because we know just how powerful this technique could be, as in chapter 117, Gojo implied that Megumi has the potential to reach his level with his 10 shadow technique. And the crazy fact is, I can totally see Sukuna fully unlocking the full potential of Megumi's power as of this instant, putting him possibly at the same level or even higher than what he was in his prime. Imagine, current Sukuna not only has 15 of his 20 fingers plus his own domain expansion, but now he has Megumi's body and his shadow techniques. So it is safe to say that Sukuna could easily defeat any of the higher tier sorcerers and possibly would even be able to fight Gojo to a standstill. But now, the question is, what is going to happen with Megumi now that Sukuna has taken over? And it is safe to say that Megumi will have zero control over his own body. you could say that this is a temporary takeover, just like what happened with Itadori after he consumed 10 fingers at once during the Shibuya incident. But it makes no sense because this goes against Itadori's initial purpose in the story as being the only person to be able to contain Sukuna, an ability that is said to be 1 in a million, meaning that logically in normal circumstances, Megumi could 1. Die, or in this case completely lose his body to Sukuna while still physically being whole. Because as it was stated by Kenjaku in chapter 55, the fallen is able to choose his own vessel. Therefore, now with his plan finally in effect, Sukuna is literally out of the box and free to go on a rampage however he wants, and he literally has his first target in sight with Yorozu. Mind you that the whole sequence of him taking over Megumi's body only lasted about 1 minute, which means that Yorozu is not far away. So what better way for Sukuna to show us how much of a demon he is by going after Megumi's sister? The madness doesn't even stop here, because now the inevitable fight to the death of Gojo versus Sukuna will hold a lot more weight than before, knowing the family-like relationship between Gojo and Megumi, which honestly is quite tragic, as this also goes back to chapter 117, where Gojo tells Megumi that 300 to 400 years ago, the leaders of the Gojo and the Zenin family, who had the same techniques as them, fought each other to the death. And like Sukuna said, this is turning out to be very interesting. Gojo will now be put in a position where he will need to find that dog inside of him to exercise and kill his beloved student for the greater good. Now we have to address the elephant in the room, and that is, what will Yuji Itadori's role be now that Sukuna is not inside of him anymore? Well, honestly, Yuji is in real deep shit. At last, when he finally found his purpose as Sukuna's vessel, it was taken away from him. He finally came to terms with his death, thinking that all he has to do is to use Angel to erase Sukuna and release Gojo from the prison rail. But now, all of it is gone, replaced with absolute terror, devastation, and major emotional damage.
Emotional damage!
Sorry for inserting a random meme here, but yeah. Anyways, Yuji is now in a position of powerlessness, purely unable to do anything for the two people that he has so much gratitude for, and most importantly, his plot armor is now gone. Because Sukuna once served as a shield from death, he could previously throw himself in any kind of situation knowing that he won't die because Sukuna just simply would not allow it. But now, he can actually die at any moment of the story, and his death won't actually mean anything anymore, as he will not be surrounded by anyone. Honestly, this is quite ironic because I don't expect Sukuna to be killing Itadori as of right now. He most likely will be playing around with his food, making Yuji feel extreme despair before deciding to kill him on a later date. And during that time period, Yuji will need to get over his helplessness and truly uncover his full potential. As we know, Gojo has stated that Itadori has no talent for curse techniques, as it is based on genetics. But he also has said that when the time comes, Yuji will inherit Sukuna's curse technique. And even though we still don't know the true repertoire of Sukuna's abilities, we can pretty much imagine that Itadori might, for example, get the power of anti-gravity from his mother. Not only that, but chapter 132 showed us that Yuji truly has the potential to become a demon god, as stated by Choso. The story said that no sorcerer can use Black Flash at will, but Yuji is so good at it that he makes us feel like he is literally spamming it. And although it is quite a reach to expect him to achieve the level of Gojo and Yuta per se, it is again quite interesting to think of how he will follow the dying wish of his grandpa. This makes me pretty confident that if any of the main character is going to die, then it will be Yuji Itadori. And wherever the events from this chapter leads to, it really isn't looking like we are going to see a bright ending. So, my fellow weebs and gamers, this is pretty much the end of the video, and I know I usually talk about One Piece here, but I've been thinking of expanding my horizons and discuss other series that I love. And since this is my first video about Jujutsu Kaisen, why not start doing more content about it? So, if you like this video, go ahead and smash that like button, subscribe, and ring the notification bell so that you don't miss any of my future videos. If you want to check out my videos about One Piece, go over to my channel, scroll down, there's quite a bit of video you can enjoy from. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, drink some Coke.